This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I have some very special guests here for a very special event right here in our local area that is so important. So let's welcome to the show the cast and director of Latter Days. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you.
Very good.
Wonderful. Thanks for having us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and it's great why you're here in South Florida, and we're going to talk about that first. Let's all you could all introduce yourselves to the listeners.
This is CJ Cox, the writer-director of Latter Days.
And this is Wes Ramsey, the star of Latter Days, and
the incomparable Jacqueline Bisset.
Nice.
Plays Lila in the movie.
So let's start first with talking a little bit about the movie to give a little bit of back info for all the listeners of why we're here today.
Sure. So for those who haven't seen Latter Days, it's the story of a very closeted gay Mormon missionary who winds up in Los Angeles and encounters the very sort of stereotypical West Hollywood gay party boy who's played by the gorgeous Wes Ramsey. And it causes sort of repercussions throughout both of their lives that cause them to question not only their faith and their view of the world, but the very nature of love and relationships.
Very cool. And
it's also a funny romantic comedy too.
Well, that helps too. And if I'm correct, this is like the 20th anniversary. Is that right?
It is.
It is indeed. 20
wow.
years.
Does that blow your mind? Like 20 years? Who would think, right?
It feels like a reunion tour that we're on right now. Like we got the band back together.
Absolutely.
I know that feels like we broke up.
It was a really fun shoot. They were the boys were great. The director was great. It was really very close knit and just loving.
Crazy how time flies.
Yeah, and it's great for an event like this to be able to relive some of those memories, because just talking about it brings it back so much. There's so much immediacy to the time that we all spent together in this sort of great adventure that we went on, which not only encompassed the shooting of the movie, but then kind of promoting it and doing a tour of film festivals. So we were together for a good year.
Yeah,
it was great. It was just great.
See, I love hearing when you're doing stuff like that you're also having fun doing it, because that's the key, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when it's a group of good people and you also believe in the work you've done in a project like this, and you've had fun together, then it feels like you've gone off to camp together, and then you get to like come back together and celebrate camp all over again.
Yeah.
And the enthusiastic audiences. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Just absolute people just rapt looking at the screen, really attentive, really moved, very beautiful.
See, that's amazing. And how would you say in the past 20 years would you say that Latter Days would have an impact now compared to 20 years ago?
Well, it's funny because I wanted to think that 20 years later we would sort of look at that film as something of a novelty and say that, oh yeah, it's great that we're past all of those issues, that we sort of moved past that as a society. And in some ways it's a little frustrating that a lot of the issues that were presented in the movie about oppression and judgment and religious oppression, but we can also sort of put that into the realm of politics too, that a lot of those issues are still really prevalent, and maybe even more so than they might have been 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, when you talk about the politics part of it, for sure, I think it's way more polarized now than it was then, which kind of blows my mind that we have to come 20 years later to be even more polarized and try to go back to a time that we should have never lived to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah, well said.
So you're down here in Fort Lauderdale for this amazing event, Back to Drive 2. Tell us about the event.
Well, the event, we were invited by the Stonewall Film Archive down here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of this. So we're really excited to be able to revisit the movie with, these fabulous people, but also within a group that I think is really important, because especially when you look at, not to make it too political, but bringing it back to the political scene in Florida right now, I think making our voices and our stories heard is more important than ever.
Oh, no doubt about it. As somebody who lives here, who has, children here, grandchildren here, I think what's been happening in the past few years politically with the powers that be in this state is absolutely ridiculous when it comes to the education system, and like I think kind of like hiding it more than it was ever being hidden, and to take books out of schools. Like, I think kids should be exposed to everything, that is, as long as it's not something bad, but exposed to all kinds of things so that they can be well developed instead of preaching, to be blunt, hatred.
Exactly. And just being exposed to a number of different opinions and people. And I think the more that people growing up are exposed to those things, the less judgmental and the more just society becomes. And so I believe that it's, that hopefully we can play a small part in that. I was talking to somebody today that on some level what we might be doing here, because essentially what we're doing is promoting gay film and gay stories, that my understanding is that's technically illegal in Florida right now.
Isn't that the most ridiculous thing ever? I don't care who you are, what your preferences are. That is just the stupidest thing I ever heard. It reminds me of going back to the Holocaust.
Yeah. So that's frustrating that those forces are still present and still very much active. 20 years after we made the movie, in which I naively thought oh, that far in the future, it's just going to seem like such a throwback, because we'll laugh about the fact that, oh yeah, remember back when that was the issue.
And I think it's important to remember that love and acceptance are universal themes, and that's about opening up your mind and not closing it off, not being afraid of each other. I mean, and especially in the name of, religion, where there seems to still be fear and oppression taking place, not just in different ways across this country, but around this world, where you can be hung or stoned to death if they find out you're gay, let alone the fact that some women, can't even let themselves be seen, literally, physically seen in public. I mean, and in the name of faith and belief, and I think it's important to remember that having conversations with each other about these things is part of how we love and accept each other, to open our mind to not continue dividing, but to believe that we can still all come together and get along and evolve collectively around the world.
Yeah, unfortunately, we let these politicians divide us in the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. And
exactly,
I have this philosophy: they're all on the same team, and it's not mine. Like, we just need to be one people together. I don't care what anybody is. You know what? People spend so much time, especially here in Florida, worrying about things that don't affect their life in any way, shape, or form. Like, I don't even understand how it would bother somebody what somebody else does in their love life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well said.
Why are all these battles going on? I mean, everything's about land, really, isn't it? All the fighting, it's really about land
and power. Yeah, land.
Well, I don't know, but first about land ownership and
sure.
What's mine? That's mine. I mean, we have to be taught that as children, not to be so greedy.
Exactly.
There's such a greed thing going on. It's just ghastly.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because I remember very strongly this conversation I had when I was in Denmark one time. I was with 8 other people, all different political beliefs, different religious beliefs, different cultural beliefs. And nobody was arguing. Nobody was attacking. We were all having discussions about these hard subjects. And then I remember the Danish girl there trying to explain how they live in Denmark that we complain about over here. And she said, listen, I don't mind paying the higher taxes. You know, Americans like to say, "Oh, they don't want to have it the way we do because the taxes are so high." And I don't mind paying the higher taxes if it means sharing with my fellow country person. You
Mhm.
know, why should I have two cars and my neighbor have none? And that attitude, like the whole world could learn from that attitude of like, why can't we just help each other? You know, it doesn't mean we need they make it like we're getting stuff taken away. No, I think we're having stuff taken away by being divided.
Yeah. And tolerance isn't about, I think tolerance is about less about fear and more about love. And it shows strength. I think to learn to tolerate each other's differences is something that shows strength. I don't think it's a weakness. I don't think it's about, I think oppression is weak. I think because it comes from fear. And go ahead.
No, I agree, but I just wanted to piggyback on that and just say that I think that's one of the brilliant things about Wes's portrayal of Christian is that the progress is learning to become vulnerable enough to be really hurt, but that's a position of strength and not weakness.
Right.
Yeah.
And he finds his strength through the movie, and that is it. That the strength is being willing enough to admit that that love is much more powerful than fear.
No doubt. And the thing is, I'm a firm believer that you can't learn if you're only listening to one side or your own side of things. We learn by encountering other people and what they go through in life and what they have learned and what they believe and how they feel. And if we could just have those conversations together, I think we could understand people a lot better and then learn to love each other no matter who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
So let's talk more about back to Drive 2. Tell us more about the event, and it's obviously it's going on tonight, 6 p.m. In Wilton Manors. What else do we want to know about it?
First of all, I'm not sure whether there's still tickets available, but I would encourage anybody to, hopefully, if you're interested in attending, check out the website. And I know that we are going to be screening scenes from the movie, and then we will be doing a panel discussion about that, along with our producer, Kirkland Tibbels, who couldn't be on the interview.
Very nice. And is there anything that you want to cover about Latter Days, about the event, about any of you, or anything we talked about that we haven't covered already?
I think that one of the things that we've been talking about is the fact that I think the movie still holds up, and we are still. I mean, I know that I am still intensely proud of it. And
so if you haven't seen it, actually you should, because these universal themes, that's the reason we're talking about it 20 years later, is like all great films, it has held up well because it still is affecting young people today that have never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
People that are rewatching it and sharing it with their family members that had never heard about it 20 years ago when it came out.
It's very successful.
Yeah, in that sense. And so it's almost like the slow burn success that's never gone away.
and that's really the test of true art, in my opinion. It's unfortunate that's still so relevant today, but thank God that we have it, that other people can maybe see it today, that maybe 20 years from now, it won't have to be as relevant.
Right.
Absolutely.
Starting all these new conversations all over again.
Exactly, because it's almost like you can't have these conversations anymore. And I'm thankful for the three of you and anybody else involved that we can have these conversations for no matter what it is,
Which are the conversations that you feel you can't have anymore?
I feel that a lot. I think the polarizing, especially here in Florida, you can't really have conversations about pretty much anything, politics, LGBTQ, even the fact of when we grew up, a vote was your own personal choice. And I remember my parents telling me, you don't have to tell anybody who you're voting for. It's your personal choice. And, it's okay for somebody else to do what they do. And you don't have to be like, I feel like now somebody's like, you have to tell them who you vote for. And if you don't, like, you're eliminated if you're
Right.
not on the same page. It's like, you know, I think that we just need to all connect together and
Yeah.
stop allowing the powers that be around the world divide us and promote more hatred and attacking.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think it's you know, very empowering to focus on the you know, the negativity of power and control. I mean, obviously, no one wants to be told who they should or shouldn't vote for. No one wants to be told who they should or shouldn't be in love with. No one wants to be told what they should or shouldn't be doing with their body, whether it's their health, own freedom. You know, and I think that's part of what we forget sometimes is it's such a great gift to be in this country and to be born in this country where we do have freedoms that aren't you know, expressed or celebrated in any capacity in other parts of the world outside of this country.
True.
It is a gift, and it's important for us to exercise our freedoms with each other to find ways to get along and find balance and equality in spite of all the division. And I think that's part of what Latter Days has a wonderful ability to do as a little movie, is remind people that there's power and transcendence in love and acceptance.
100%.
Exactly.
Well, you guys are amazing. I'm very thankful that we have your movie for, you know, people today and all through the years and even 20 years from now. I'm thankful that you're down here in South Florida to kind of create some unity, some love from an event that I think is very important.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it is also just a great opportunity for us to sort of relive just this fantastic adventure that they were wonderful enough to come along on the ride with me.
Well, it's amazing that you seem so connected too. So that's the artist in all of you, that you created this great piece of art because you work together. And that's the key.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure.